Daniel chapter 2 informs us about a dream that greatly disturbed the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood an enormous, dazzling statue. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. Daniel interpreted the dream as follows. Your Majesty, you are that head of gold. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. As iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. This kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. According to Daniel, the different sections of the statue represented 4 successive kingdoms who would rule on earth. Daniel explicitly tells us that the first of these kingdoms, represented by the statue's head of gold, is Babylon, the kingdom which was in power during his day. The identities of the second and third kingdoms are revealed in a later vision in Daniel chapter 8. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, had a vision. There before me was a ram with 2 horns. No animal could stand against it. Suddenly a goat with a prominent horn came toward the 2-horned ram and charged at it in great rage. The ram was powerless to stand against it. The goat became very great, but at the height of its power, the large horn was broken off, and in its place 4 prominent horns grew up. The prophecy goes on to inform us that the ram with 2 horns symbolizes a combined kingdom consisting of Medo-Persians. The 2-horned ram that you saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. The 2-horned ram is an excellent symbol, as the 2 horns represent the 2 powers of the Medes and Persians, who historically united under Cyrus the Great. So, where in the sequence of kingdoms does the Medo-Persian Empire fit? The prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah answer this question for us, because they informed us that Babylon would be defeated by the Medes. See, I will stir up against them the Medes. Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, will be overthrown by God. The Lord has stirred up the kings of the Medes, because his purpose is to destroy Babylon. Historically, King Belshazzar, who we have been told was in power at the time of Daniel's vision of the 2-horned ram, was the last Babylonian ruler. In the year 539 BCE, he was defeated by Cyrus the Great, who commanded the Medo-Persian Empire. Thus, we can conclude that the Medo-Persian Empire is the second kingdom in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the kingdom that is depicted as the statue's silver chest and arms, and is said to defeat Babylon. What about the symbol of the goat as the animal that will defeat the 2-horned ram, with the goat's prominent horn then splitting into 4 smaller horns? Daniel chapter 8 informs us that the goat represents the Greeks. The shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the large horn between its eyes is the first king. The 4 horns that replace the one that was broken off represent 4 kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, but will not have the same power. Historically, Alexander the Great was king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. He overthrew the Medo-Persians and created a vast empire, the likes of which the world had never seen. He died suddenly in the year 323 BCE, with his empire descending into chaos, eventually splitting up into 4 stable but weaker power blocks. We can see that Alexander the Great perfectly fits Daniel's vision of the goat with a prominent horn that splits into 4 horns. So far, it has been demonstrated how the golden head represents Babylon, the chest and arms of silver represents the Medo-Persians, and that the belly and thighs of bronze represents the Macedonians. We will now switch focus back to Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel chapter 2. What about the remaining portion of the statue, which is said to have legs of iron, with feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay? Daniel interpreted this fourth kingdom to be strong as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. We can see that the fourth kingdom is described as being far stronger than those kingdoms which come before it. Historically, the emergence of the Roman Empire perfectly matches this description. The Romans annihilated the Macedonian Empire, dissolving their territory into Roman provinces. The Roman Empire went from strength to strength, eventually ruling over vast parts of the world, more than any other empire before it. Daniel also mentioned that this fourth kingdom will be a divided kingdom, partly strong and partly brittle. Again, this perfectly describes the Roman Empire. By the end of the 4th century CE, it had split into two, with the western part ruling from Ravenna and the eastern part ruling from Constantinople. Although it was weakened, both halves of the Roman Empire continued to be among the strongest powers in the world. In summary, we have now identified all four kingdoms symbolized by the statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream: Babylon, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Macedonian Empire, and the Roman Empire. This brings us onto the final part of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Daniel interprets this portion of the dream as follows: In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. It will crush all those kingdoms, but it will itself endure forever. We can see that the rock in Nebuchadnezzar's dream is interpreted by Daniel to be a fifth kingdom. Historically, it is only Islam which fulfills all these characteristics of the rock. The 7th century CE saw the emergence of Islam as a force to be reckoned with. In the words of Daniel, Islam crushed and brought to an end the world empires at the time, including the mighty Romans and Persians. The early Muslims defeated them in war, capturing many of their lands, which remain under Muslim rule to this day. The Islamic Empire spread rapidly and went on to become one of the largest that the world had ever seen. Unlike the idolatrous empires that came before it, Prophet Muhammad and his companions were godly in character, preaching monotheism and implementing the law of God as divinely revealed in the Quran. Note how Daniel relates the kingdoms to one another. He spoke of 5 consecutive kingdoms, which would emerge one after the other, beginning with Babylon and ending with God's kingdom. In all of history, there is no series of events which fits Daniel's sequence other than the emergence of the kingdoms of Babylon, the Medo-Persians, Macedonia, Rome, and Islam. Critics may cite the fact that Jewish commentators have traditionally associated Islam not with God's kingdom, but rather the 4th evil kingdom. One of the ways they do this is by merging Rome into the 3rd kingdom to create a combined Macedonian Roman Empire. However, such interpretations are highly problematic because there is nothing in the prophecy which indicates that the 3rd kingdom is a joint empire. It's important to note that not a single Jewish commentator prior to the advent of Islam interpreted the 4th kingdom to be the rise of an Ishmaelite empire. Professor John J. Collins, a leading expert on Daniel, acknowledges that rabbis distorted its interpretation after the rise of Islam. The prevailing interpretation identified the kingdoms as Babylon, Media-Persia, Greece, and Rome. Eventually, the sequence was adapted to take account of the new developments, specifically the rise of Islam. It's apparent that Jewish commentators only started to link the 4th evil kingdom to Ishmael after the advent of Islam and its subsequent establishment as a world power, as they knew the implication was that Islam is the foretold kingdom of God. This is made clear in Jewish writings just prior to the advent of Islam, where 5th century rabbis who were living under the oppressive Roman Empire were anticipating the imminent arrival of a salvific figure who would defeat the Fourth Kingdom Rome and usher in the Messianic age. Rabbis wrote in the Babylonian Talmud, "Those empires subjugated the Jewish people. With regard to Rome and Persia, their kingship extends until the coming of the Messiah."